You just asked me what I thought about what's going on in America. It's a big shit show.
Is, you know how there's been an exodus from X to Blue Sky, and many of the increasing number of mainstream legacy media are leaving X, like The Guardian has left X. But what it's done is it's stopped debate and discourse and discussion. So all the people on Blue Sky are in this particular echo chamber, and then all the people in X, I think X is far more diverse, but it's at risk of becoming an echo chamber. And then the tragedy is people don't talk, they don't discuss things, and then we don't learn from each other.
And who benefits from that?
The elites, the globalists. And in the first 5 days of his presidency, his administration recovered 75,000 to 80,000 missing unaccompanied migrant children. Under Biden, over 325,000.
75 to 80,000?
Yes, in 5 days. And 4 years under Biden, 325,000 unaccompanied migrant children had gone missing.
And the biggest thing for me, is he has taken more questions in a week than Biden did in 4 years. And he's answered them. These Western corporations who are giving you AI are giving you a propagandized, warped version of AI that's trying to manipulate the minds of the masses. And it's all down to the programmers who are behind it.
Take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes a duty. So said Thomas Jefferson. Go to bit.ly/lawful tax protest or bit.ly/make-war-history and find out why it is a criminal offence to pay central government or local government taxes in the UK. bit.ly/lawful tax protest or bit.ly/make-war-history. Hey, Gordon.
Hello, you handsome man.
Just so you know, when I let Gordon into my Zoom, he starts off by saying, "Hello, gorgeous." It's always a great way to start a call.
You are, mate. You're a beautiful man.
Thank you. So it's been a while since we recorded because you've been away and I've been away, and we're recording this on the Thursday, January the 30th at 9:15 in the morning UK time. This is going to go out on my channel and on Gordon's channel and all the relevant links in the description below. And since we recorded, there's not much been going on, has there? It's all been very quiet on the news front, nothing controversial in the UK, nothing in the US, just business as usual.
It's all ticking along nicely, isn't it?
Yes. So anyway, let's start with the United States. So Trump is now the president. Right. So tell us, what do you think?
I saw a TikTok the other day with a woman who was like, it was yesterday, I think it was. The missus was talking to me about it, and there's this woman. She was like doing a TikTok, going, "Guys, all of my benefits. I don't know what benefits it was, but it's all been stopped. How am I going to feed my kids? What am I going to do?" And I think she was like an immigrant or something like that, you know. And somebody was in the comments going, "Is this you?" Due to a week before her dancing because Trump was getting in, and now all of a sudden her future's gone. It's amazing to me how people will vote against their best interests, but then I suppose just by voting, you're voting against your best interests in the situation we're at now because we've got no choice.
Yeah,
they're all the same.
Well, it's funny because I don't know if he stopped the benefits for citizens.
I can't remember what it was now. The missus was talking about it yesterday. But I mean, you know, there were people out there who voted for Trump expecting great change, things that were going to benefit them and things that were going to save them. And he's immediately done things that are costing their lives. I mean, you know, he's took the benefit cap, away from the insulin. So insulin is immediately going to go from $60 or whatever it was straight up to $1,500 or whatever it is. So that's going to, you know, obviously people who have voted for Trump hoping for change now are going to be suffering. These are the very people that he relied upon to win. And now they are going to be suffering. But then, you know, you look on the other side of things and you got RFK doing his stuff. And it's like, I don't understand. It's like there's two different people running the office right now. He's cutting the benefit, the insulin cap, meaning that diabetics are going to be well, dying, basically, because they're going to be rationing their insulin. And then at the same time, he's promoting RFK, that he's going to be taking on and beating Big Pharma. And you've got Liz Warren there who's saying, oh, RFK is going to bankrupt the drug companies if he gets in. It's like,
good.
It's a big fugazi. It's a big, that you're all going to get screwed over. All of you. If you haven't given Trump billions of dollars, I don't think he's going to help you. And you can see that with his policy with regards to the Palestinians and Israel. He's cut all. Yeah, we're going to stop the wars. Really? Are you? Apart from Israel, though, right? And that's the big one. I find it very difficult to get optimistic about any future in the West over these last few months, few years. And I feel like the only people who are suffering here are the people. And, the people who are doing all of this and have got us into this mess, they're living it up. They're living a good life. But it's people who are going to be suffering. And I don't know, it's not a funny anecdote or anything like that. You just asked me what I thought about what's going on in America. It's a big shit show, as it is over here, and as it always has been, and as I think it always will be. They just put on this big show to make people, believe that people are fighting for them, and meanwhile they're just doing both sides of the coin and doing whatever they want and screwing people over.
It's interesting.
That's essentially what I think, mate.
Yeah, it's interesting, Gordon. And what I appreciate about doing these videos with you is you and I don't agree on everything.
No.
But we're willing to have a discussion. And one of the things I've been thinking about recently, and I'll come back to Trump and my take on it, is how there's been an exodus from X to Blue Sky.
Yeah.
And many of the increasing number of mainstream legacy media are leaving X, like The Guardian has left X. But what it's done is it's stopped debate and discourse and discussion. So all the people on Blue Sky are in this particular echo chamber. Yeah. And then all the people in X, I think X is far more diverse, but it's at risk of becoming an echo chamber. And then the tragedy is people don't talk. They don't discuss things. And then we don't learn from each other.
And who benefits from that?
The elites, the globalists.
Because this is all done by design. This is not accident.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So then the people in Blue Sky, can't go on Blue Sky and say that the injections are harmful, because that's just misinformation. So then they don't get to actually discover all the stuff that's coming to light about the injections. Various inquiries, and Chris Whitty saying, oh, the mandates were political, not medical. And then The Guardian don't report that. And if The Guardian posted something about Chris Whitty on X, then people would challenge them because The Guardian censors by omission. So there's just no debate. So what I appreciate is the opportunity for discourse between you and I, including where we disagree. So here's my take on Trump. There's definitely things that he's done that I don't agree with, that I think are harmful. And there's definitely things that he's done that I'm like, bloody hell, thank goodness. And then I think, even politicians that I admire and follow, and, if they were candidates in my constituency, I would vote for, like Jeremy Corbyn or George Galloway. Well, they've done things that I don't agree with. Like they both supported lockdowns. They both have had the injections. Are you crazy? Corbyn still buys into the climate Nazism of net zero. George Galloway's questioning it increasingly. Good, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's always the case. So here's what Trump has done, which I think is really, really commendable.
Yeah, let's talk about his good things. Okay, I've been very pessimistic at the start of this video. Let's talk about his good things, and I will happily chip in here to prove to people I'm not partisan. I don't hate Trump or any. Well, I hate them all equally. Yeah, you carry on. Let's be positive. Let's the good things.
So one bringing in the getting the peace agreement, stopping the slaughter in Gaza before he became elected. Right now, there's stuff to say. He's still a Zionist, which you and I disagree with, and we'll talk about that in terms of the things that we disagree with that he's doing, right? But stopping that, and the story behind it, according to Haaretz and Arab media and the Israeli establishment, is that Stephen Wickoff, his envoy, went to Doha, where there was a peace conference with Arabs discussing what to do. He calls up Netanyahu and says, listen, I'm coming to see you. You're going to meet with me. And Netanyahu says, well, no, because that means I don't work on the Sabbath, on the Shabbat. And Stephen Wickoff said, I'm coming, you're going to come and meet me. And apparently they were shouting and swearing on that call. He goes over to Jerusalem on the Shabbat. Netanyahu comes to meet him, first time he's ever worked on the Shabbat. And Stephen Wickoff compels him. At the end of that meeting, Netanyahu signs the agreement that he's been resisting since December 2023. Now, whether there were any other trade-offs made that we're going to find out later, I don't know. But the slaughter has stopped. The slaughter has stopped. So there's that. Then he's withdrawing 20,000 troops from Europe and bringing them back to the UK.
I didn't know about that.
To the US. He's cut the NGO funding for NGOs. And what they do, well, they import illegals into the United States. All over the world, they instigate color revolutions all over the world. He has strengthened the First Amendment. He's made it a federal, he said, listen, not having any federal employees working with any media organizations to suppress the voice of American citizens. So he's strengthened the First Amendment. He's got rid of DEI, which was so gone the wrong way. Where, I think you'll agree with me, Gordon, here, right? All people are worthy of value, and it's not right for any particular demographic to suppress any other demographic.
No.
Absolutely
right.
Right, so he's got rid of that. And Gordon, what he's done. Oh my God, it's so insane that a president had to do this to draft an executive order that says there are two genders, men and women.
Yeah.
How far had we traveled down the insanity? Right? It's like an executive order that water is wet. Like, you ever need that? So he's done that. He has the illegals started deporting themselves before he came into power because they knew what was coming. He sent troops down to the southern border because then if you don't have a border, you don't have a country. You're not a nation. You're not a sovereign nation. So he strengthened the border, and in the first 5 days of his presidency, his administration recovered 75,000 to 80,000 missing unaccompanied migrant children. Under Biden, over 325,000.
75 to 80,000?
Yes, in 5 days. And 4 years under Biden, 325,000 unaccompanied migrant children had gone missing. Now, I interviewed, this video at the time of recording is not on my channel. I interviewed Lieutenant Colonel Steve Murray, who's a retired cybersecurity intelligence military professional. He worked in the US military in cybersecurity, and we did a 35-minute video on child trafficking and pedophilia. And people have no idea what a godsend, a horrific godsend, open borders are to criminals, where they're importing children, unaccompanied children, being raped. I mean, we're talking about kids below the age of 10, being repeatedly raped and sold on and on and on and on. And what was happening was they'd get into the border, and then the US government, via NGOs, is trafficking those children all over the US. So Trump is putting a stop to that, not being reported in the mainstream media, because the mainstream media, of course, is captured by elite pedophiles. What else is he doing? Oh, his speech at Davos. I didn't listen to his inauguration speech, but I listened to his Davos speech. And Gordon, one of the things that I make, so Trump is a Zionist, but he's anti-war. He's anti-death. He'll probably do Zionism through other means, right? But the way that he talked about war in Ukraine, I don't recall Corbyn or Galloway speaking this way. I think through three different points on that speech in the Q&A, he kept talking about the waste of the young men dying. He didn't say young Ukrainian men. He didn't say young Russian men. He said young men are dying on those battlefields. It's a tragedy. It shouldn't be happening. So the guy, it was just very, very humane. You know, Biden and Starmer, they talk about defeating Russia. They don't talk about the children of other people that are lying slain, other people's children. Trump does. It's just very, very humane. He said it has to stop. It has to stop. And then he started that whole negotiation process with Russia to stop that wasteful slaughter. The other thing that I think is good, he is speaking to EU nations. He's not speaking to the EU. He's going to the nations to negotiate with them, right? Because he doesn't want to deal with that imperialist Politburo setup. then something, and this I covered in my interview with Tom Luongo and Alex Craner, my latest video. Steve Besant, who's been confirmed as Secretary of the SEC, a senator said to him, a Texan senator said to him, do you know about the proposal for US Treasuries to be sold, to be managed, for the Bank of England to act as a clearinghouse for US Treasuries? Now, Steve Besant said, yes, I know, because you told me about that previously, and I'm going to investigate and report back. Now, what that does, it allows the Bank of England, the City of London, to control the price of dollars. And this was something that was set up under Biden. And what it does is it takes away the US sovereignty. And increasingly, Gordon, I'm coming round to the idea, and I interviewed Richard Poe, the author of How the British Invented Communism and Blamed It on the Jews, that we have the British Empire pulling the strings. In Richard Poe's book, he gives references how Kissinger was a British agent. Kissinger appointed Klaus Schwab for the WEF. So we have the British Empire in the background, the remnants of the British Empire in the background, attempting to pull the strings everywhere. You control the dollar, you control the price of the dollar, you control the US. So Trump is putting a stop to that. He said to Americans, you want to buy an ICE car, internal combustion engine, you can do that. He's got rid of the mandates for that you could only buy electric vehicles. There's some deadline when that was going to come in. He's got rid of the whole net zero climate fascism. And then with the appointments of people like RFK, Kash Patel is going to cleanse the FBI. Trump has said, in 45 days, I want a plan for the release of JFK, the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and MLK. And I think what the JFK assassination is going to show when those documents are released, that it was done by the CIA, the Secret Service, MI6, and Mossad. And MI6 in the background pulling the strings of the other two agencies. And what else? And the press secretary. So the press secretary, I saw a little clip with one of the legacy media. I think it was CNN.
I haven't seen anything yet, but I know it's going to be different.
The press room was packed, absolutely packed. And he's allowed vloggers and podcasters to apply for credentials, where Biden was banning people. You know, you can't ask questions. He's made it open. Anybody can apply, including the legacy media. Doesn't mean they'll get in. I don't know what the criteria are, right? And he's doing loads of press conferences himself, Trump. He's talking to people, taking questions from anybody and everybody, unlike Biden.
I literally just wrote down taking questions as you said it.
Yeah, he's doing all that. But the press secretary, the CNN, I think it was a CNN journalist, said, you know, these people that are being deported, you know, because they're going around the city deporting the illegals, and apparently they're deporting the violent illegals first, because they're the ones that are going to kick up trouble first, right? So he's deporting them first. And this journalist said, well, you know, these people they're not criminals. They're not convicted criminals or anything, just sending them back. And then the press secretary, I forget her name, said, no, they are criminals. They entered the country illegally. That's a crime. They got to go. You want to enter the country? You do so legally. Fair enough. Anyway, that's just some of the stuff. There may be more stuff. I've said
I've got more written down. If I can pile on.
What else?
Yeah, listen, all of those things were good points, and I agree with all of them.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like you and I disagree on those things. We don't. He pardoned the January 6ers.
Yes.
This is huge. That was a massive travesty of justice. I know people who were on the ground on January 6th, and they've told me, Gordon, the way it was portrayed by CNN, by MSNBC, by the legacy media is absolutely the polar opposite to how it was on the day. And you and I had conversations about this. You know, the whole thing with Trump was that it looked like they prosecuted him for an incitement to peace, and it was an absolute travesty of justice that any of these people who literally just turned up to protest, and none of them were violent. I don't think that nobody was killed or injured or anything like that.
Not by the protesters. I mean, there was some violence, right? But by agents provocateurs, and of course, you get a violent element.
You know, there was
the most armed population in the world. They turned up without their guns.
Without guns.
Protest.
Yeah, I think it was just a few months before in one of these red states. People turned up at a court building, I think it was one of the state buildings, and they were dressed in bandanas with big rifles and whatever, and they walked in there. Do you remember that? They, these people who at the January 6th, this wasn't a riot really. Yes, it was. There was lots of agent provocateurs who were causing stuff. We know that there were lots of undercover FBI guys, I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens of them on the ground. So the way it was portrayed to the world was a hell of a lot different to how it was actually on that day. And to go after these people was a statement of intent by the Democrats, by a corrupt Democratic establishment who were weaponizing the law because Trump bad. Go after Trump.
Gordon, can I interrupt you? Can I add that, right? Because so if people don't know, so there were videos on X on the day that showed the police letting people into the Capitol building. Then also, I know for myself that that because I've been in demonstrations around the Houses of Parliament, they're really well defended. You can't get in. So how come it was so easy to get into the Capitol building? They knew the demonstration was happening on the day. Trump posted 2 tweets where he said, "Act peacefully, go home, don't do violence." And he posted a video where he said the same. Those got deleted on the order of the Democratic establishment. So people never saw that he was calling for peace. Inside the room, because it was all during the days of COVID and lockdown, Nancy Pelosi put in a rule that there could be no more than 53 senators present. Now, what that did, that prevented a vote about investigating the allegations that the election was rigged because it wasn't quorate. There is a clause in the Constitution that says if 100 senators or congresspeople or whatever, right? I mix them both up. Say that the election, there are these allegations and there needs to be investigation. It can't be certified until the investigation is concluded. So what she did was she rigged it so that they couldn't make that vote. It couldn't be successful. Trump asked for the National Guard. The Democrat administration said no. The police officer, the chief of police in Washington, D.C., actually came out and gave evidence to an inquiry and said, listen, they stopped me from providing sufficient enforcement. I was told not to do this. Now, of course, the mainstream media don't report any of this.
Well, no, and it's a good point, actually, you make there, because I remember the mainstream media making a big deal in the aftermath of January 6th of reports that Trump tried to grab the wheel of one of the vehicles that was driving him around. And they were obviously painting it out that he was nuts and he was crazy. If you add all that information in, it paints a very different story in your mind, doesn't it? It paints a different story to a lunatic president who was out of control, to somebody who could see what was happening and wanted to change it and wanted to actually do something about it. The pardoning of the January, and I often forget that the information that we know, that people who are listening haven't actually got privy to that information, or they haven't watched our previous podcasts or anything like that. It was. I had people on the ground, friends there, who were like, "This is dodgy." You had Ray Epps, I think his name was, who was telling people, go into the building. I mean, this guy was an obvious spook. He was obviously spook. The police literally just let the people through. They didn't crash through the barriers. The police literally pulled the barriers aside and let them through. And you can see there's video evidence of all of this happening. And then you've got the overreach by the social media companies to silence him, and all, as we found out, at the whims of the intelligence agencies, the Democratic Intelligence Agency. So you can see here that what was portrayed on the day was very different to actually what went on. And these people who were on the ground, who got prosecuted and sent to prison with incredible long sentences, then being pardoned. I don't think they pardoned them all. I think there's 1 or 2 that they commuted the sentence because there's some illegalities that in other areas that they may be involved in. But to do that is an incredible thing for him to do. I'm very happy that he stood up against what was obviously I think a setup on the day.
It allowed the Democrats later on. The plan was that they could then accuse Trump of inciting an insurrection, and then under Clause 14 of the Constitution, Article 14 of the Constitution, he'd be banned from running again. The whole thing was a false flag. And also some of those January 6ers were being kept in solitary confinement without trial, and a violation of their constitutional rights. So, and habeas corpus, it's just absolutely disgusting. And none of that was being covered on the mainstream media. So people over on Blue Sky and the Guardian readers and the BBC watchers, they won't know about this. And you and I are just spreading misinformation. But where you look, and you know what I'm reminded of, Gordon, what I do as a child protection social worker is I look for evidence on all sides. I look for evidence for the good, that these parents aren't abusing the children. I look for evidence for the bad, that they are abusing the children. And I dig and dig and dig and dig, and then I can see, okay, which way is it going? But if I don't look for evidence for the other side, I won't know it's there. How can
I mean, with regards to the Guardian and whatever, buggering off to Blue Sky, it doesn't. They've always been an echo chamber, and over the last 5 to 7 years, the mainstream media has increasingly become more of an echo chamber, and this has contributed to their downfall. You know, there were videos, I haven't done many videos in the last few months, but there were videos that I've done in the past that, you know, consistently, even me with a small 200,000 following on TikTok, get more videos, more views than the BBC does on their videos, and they've got 36,000 staff globally. You know, so exactly. You know, the BBC would be, if you look some of my videos, millions of views. The BBC would, you know, they would, the Guardian would kill for those sort of figures, you know, but increasingly their figures have been dropping, and they're preaching to people who I think now are almost like, la, 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 don't want to listen to the other side. And they're dwindling, that number is. So with regards to them going over to Blue Sky, I don't think that's really it's going to contribute to their downfall. The media is dying. It's been dying for a long time. And this is, you know, just them, you know, lying on their back, kicking their legs up in the air, basically. So I'm not really, that side of things I'm not really worried about. They've always been an echo chamber. So them leaving and going elsewhere, yeah, it's bad, but it's not really, I don't think, going to change much. And they are going away. The media are. It's been going that way for a long time. Because people like me and you have millions of us, billions of us, has literally just pushed through the narrative and broken their hold over it. With regards to Trump, going back to him, he's basically ended the Ukraine war. The proxy war in Ukraine. We can see that's it. It's going to end. And we can also see that if Biden won, or if Kamala won rather, it wouldn't have. Yeah. And that's a very big deal, because I think that's World War III if they carried on. I think that there was one path it was going down, and it was nuclear annihilation. He also, this has flown under the radar a little bit. You talked about the child pedophilia ring, the 70,000. That's an incredible amount. That is, if that's accurate, well done. You know, something's been done about it. He's appointed this sort of like these three guys to fix Hollywood, basically. And I know it sounds like oh, really? Listen, these guys, you're talking Sylvester Stallone, John Voight, and Mel Gibson. Putting Mel Gibson in, I mean, I know it's not a cabinet position or anything like that, but giving him a position in your government says, listen, at least I'm willing to listen to other people who have been screaming about things for a very long time. So that's really encouraging. And the biggest thing for me, the biggest thing is he has taken more questions in a week than Biden did in 4 years. And he's answered them. Yeah. And you may not have answered them to your satisfaction, but he sat there, he's signing an executive order after executive order, he's taking questions, you can see it's totally unscripted, and you can see they can basically ask him anything, and he's just writing and answering, and, you know, occasionally he will say something that the media will jump on, the legacy media that is, and make a big deal out of it. But when you're taking that amount of questions, for you to jump on that one thing and not talk about the 99% of the other questions that he's taking and the honesty that's coming, then you can see that that's extremely partisan, and that's something that you and I, hopefully, are not guilty of. So that's fantastic. Now, we could talk endlessly about all the bad things, and I've touched on a few of them at the beginning of this. I could go on, but
there's a couple of other good things when you finish, right?
You carry on, mate. If you can think of any more.
So he's gonna bring manufacturing and industry back to the United States. It's going to take time, right? He said, look, we are going to drill for energy. You cannot run a modern economy without energy. In fact, you can't run your body without energy. If your mitochondria stop functioning, you will die, because there's no energy to fuel all the metabolic processes. So using that as a metaphor for a country, if you don't have energy to run the processes within a country, the country will die, the people will die. And he said, enough of this solar power, wind power nonsense, because it ain't going to give us the energy you need. And something we haven't talked about, he said, we are going to drill for oil. And oil, by the way, is the second most abundant liquid on this planet after water. It is not a fossil fuel. It is abiotic. It's made by mineral processes, but we don't need to get into that now. So I think that's also really encouraging. He's cutting the bloat within government. Because if you look through history, what happens in governments is that, and you can see it with Keir Starlin, they extract more and more power for themselves, more and more power for themselves. And in doing so, it diminishes the power of the people, but also it increases the poverty. People get poorer and poorer and poorer because you have a smaller and smaller productive element fueling an increasingly bloated, non-productive bureaucracy. So he's going to reverse all that. Thank bloody goodness.
Yeah, I mean, it's they're a victim of their own stupidity, really. The West, it's not just America; it's Western culture. Because basically, what we did was China didn't steal anything; we gave them our manufacturing.
Yep.
It happened 30, 40 years ago. And you can see what's happened to China since then. It's gone from one of the poorest nations on the planet to the superpower on this planet, I believe, right now. And it's done it in our lifetimes. And that's how it did it. It did it by becoming the manufacturing hub for Western corporations who were trying to cut their profits. And if you've got a company where 40% of your expenses are your wages, and you can cut that in half by sending it abroad, and all you care about is money and not your staff, then you're going to send it abroad, or you're going to import cheap labour over to your own company. And this is basically what has happened to the West in our lifetimes. And as a result of that, the working class and the lower class in the West have got poorer and poorer and poorer, and the corporations and the top 1%, 5% have got richer and richer and richer. And naturally, what happens as a result of that over a period of 3-4 decades is you've got an increasing amount of people who have made loads of money by importing really or manufacturing really cheap products from foreign countries and then sending it abroad, which is great if the middle class and the poor have got money to buy it. But if they haven't because they've got jobs, then it becomes a real problem. And you can see the system creaking and breaking. Certainly in the last 5 years it's been accelerating, and unless something changes, something's going to break. So him saying that, although you're going to get people, environmentalists are going to be really jumping on him for drilling the oil in the US. I asked them, to these people, the environmentalists who care about the planet so much, I asked them what's going to change the environment more, drilling for oil at home or going around the world and bombing it all because you need the oil. Because essentially that's what America has been doing in our lifetimes. They've been going around stealing all the oil. They're stealing 75% of Syria's oil, or at least they were for years. And when you've got all that oil, you say, underneath your feet, they say that they've got the largest reserves of oil on the planet, America, the USA do. Why are you going around the world stealing everybody else's? And the reason for that is because it's dirty oil. It's shale oil. You've got to frack for it the same way you frack for gas, and that's expensive and it's dirty and it's bad for the environment. So companies don't want to buy any rights to oil that might be in Alaska, because it's really a harsh environment, really difficult to get to. It's shale oil, which is bad for the environment. But I still argue that it's better for America to do that because it's going to increase their economy, although it would be bad for the environment per se, because it'll put an end to your 1,000 military bases around the world that are actually fueling, are drinking all this oil. The US military is the largest polluter on this planet, bar none.
And war is
for them to
environmentally damaging activity.
For them to keep the oil flowing into their country that they need, then they need these military bases around the world to protect their interests abroad. That's what they say. So if you actually are doing that at home and you've got your manufacturing at home, you don't need these military bases around the world. In the 70s, there wasn't 1,000 US military bases around the world because they didn't have, they still had manufacturing at home.
Yeah.
Now and that costs money, and obviously the people aren't benefiting. So for them to do this, I think is a good thing, although other people are going to say it's bad.
But also, people ignore the environmental damage of solar panels and wind turbines. Wind turbines kill, in the sea, killing whales. Then also the fact that wind turbines and solar panels never produce a return on energy. They actually take more energy to manufacture and make than they give a return on, and then they can't be recycled. They're toxic. They're leaching. If you
the chemicals are dug out the ground by kids with their bare hands.
They destroy the landscape. And then with solar panels, what happened in Anglesey a few months ago, where there was a hailstorm or high winds, and the solar panels were broke. Now that land is polluted, and those solar panels are useless. Or in hot countries where you have a covering of dust or sand on the solar panels, and then you can't generate heat from energy from them. And then if it's too windy, which has happened in Britain lately, the wind turbines don't work. And then if it's not enough wind, the wind turbines don't work. So you're going to run diesel generators anyway. And then the whole manufacturing process relies on diesel. And then wind and solar aren't going to give you fertilizers or plastics that you need oil for in order to run our economy. So it's an absolute scam, and he's put a stop to it. One other thing that I thought of that he's done that's good, I forget the name of his Middle East envoy. His advisor to the Pentagon has said, we don't need to be in the US, in the Middle East. It hasn't served us. We don't need to be involved. And then I saw something on Zero Hedge this morning. I didn't read the article, but he's talking about withdrawing the US troops from Syria. Yes. And he said in passing,
they've got what they want in Syria now, though, so they can leave, can't they?
No, I don't think they have. It's more like Turkey's mess. But he's now said in passing that we're not going to fight Israel's wars. Trump has said that in passing. It's not our war. Anyway,
but he's also said, he's not hopeful that the ceasefire is going to last.
Yeah, which I can completely get. Which can take in because of the belligerent nature of the Zionist state.
Yeah, it's you can see what I mean by how he says both things at the same time, and both sides are supposed to believe that it's true. It's madness. He's a politician.
He's a politician, but he's hands off.
A businessman. He's good at it.
Yeah, but he's hands off. He's hands off.
Yeah.
If we go into the bad stuff, right? His pro-Zionist stance, which I don't agree with. I think what's likely to happen is, he said something about people in Gaza shouldn't return to Gaza because it's just been flattened. They should go to Jordan and Egypt, and he's offered, he hasn't cut aid to Egypt and Jordan and Israel, so he's probably using that as a bribe with Jordan and Egypt. Look,
he's trying to get them to take in
them, right? Which really means that the Israeli state can then expand into Gaza. I don't think he said anything about how West Bank settlements are being destroyed by fanatic Zionists who are just moving in and taking the Palestinians out, taking their homes at gunpoint and with bulldozers. He's not said anything about that. He's not said anything about Israel pulling back from South Lebanon and Syria. So Israel is expanding, and I think he's released the supply of bunker buster bombs.
Yeah, the 2,000
put a halt on, right? So Israel can have those. Israel could use those either to attack Iran or to attack Hamas or Hezbollah, whoever, right? So he's supplying them with the kind of weaponry that Biden wasn't doing. And one of my fears, right? I've got two fears here, right? That the Zionists, and I just want to make it clear, I'm drawing a distinction between Jews and Zionists. They're not the same, right? It's really clear, they're not the same. Zionism is not a religion, it's a political ideology. It's a colonialist ideology, which I believe was instigated by the British Empire as a tool for British Empire to control the Middle East and to prevent those that have the oil from uniting against Western Empire. So they're going to demolish the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is the third holiest shrine in Islam, in order to build a temple. If they demolish that mosque, I think the repercussions from the Muslim world are going to be furious. There may not be state-level repercussions.
It's like, to put it into context, it's like Muslims demolishing the Wailing Wall.
Yeah, horrendous. That would be horrendous.
That's the equivalent.
Yeah, but the blowback will be on Jews.
Yeah,
because people confuse Zionism with
they use Jews as a shield. You're just an anti-Semite. That's the excuse.
They're 1% of the population compared to I don't know how many billions of Muslims.
They're also less than, I think, 30% of Zionists. Jews are. And not all Jews are Zionists, as we know. If you want to know which Jews aren't Zionists, look for the Jews that have been expelled from the Labour Party in the last 4 to 5 years. That's a Jew who is not behind. So it's a trick that they play, as that one lady once said to Amy Goodman. It's a trick to just shout anti-Semitism because the truth is the majority of Zionists are Christian, not Jewish. And they are of all sorts of faiths, and many of them are atheists. In fact, half of all Jews who are Zionists, which, as I say, isn't the majority, they're atheists too.
Yeah.
So,
doesn't honor God.
No, I mean, how can you be a religion if half of you don't believe in God?
Yeah.
A religion.
If you treat others badly, it's like that rabbi that I interviewed who said, I said to him, "What's your solution?" He said, "One state, Jews and Muslims living side by side in peace."
As it was before the Balfour Declaration. Interestingly, this DeepSeek AI thing. I don't know whether you want to talk about that, because if we talk about it, it's probably going to take a 20-minute conversation. But interestingly, this DeepSeek AI that has not 500 billion off Nvidia stock, which was highly ballooned. It was much higher than it should have been anyway. But if you ask OpenAI about Palestine and about specifically, what are the roots of the Palestine conflict? Have the Palestinians ever been offered a 2 states? OpenAI will give you the Zionist propaganda. Oh yes, they've been offered 2 states many times, when the truth is that's not actually the case at all. And if you ask DeepSeek the same questions, it gives you the sort of answer that I would give you. How if you've got to look to the colonial mindset and what happened with the Balfour Declaration and blah blah blah. It gives a much deeper explanation. And also, critically, if you ask OpenAI, if they're assuming there is a God that's all powerful and all knowing, is it reasonable for him to take a certain section of people and make them his chosen people? And if you ask OpenAI, it'll immediately say yes. And if you ask DeepSeek, it thinks for 14 seconds, or it thought for 14 seconds, and immediately said no. And there's the difference. These Western corporations who are giving you AI are giving you a propagandized, warped version of AI that's trying to manipulate the minds of the masses. And it's all down to the programmers who are behind it. We'll do another section on that anyway, but it did fit into this. It's Zionism, and it's rife in Western culture.
Absolutely.
Western establishment, rather, not culture, establishment.
Yeah, and while you were saying that, I just remembered a couple of other things that Trump has done that's good, and another thing that's bad. I'll say the good things first, right? So he has banned the surgical and chemical mutilation of children.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. So if Gordon, you're okay because you're over 19, you can change your gender and ask your doctor to give you hormone tablets or a surgical intervention. So that
if ever I get convicted of a crime and have to go to prison, that's what I'll do immediately.
Really? Anyway, right? But it's bad for children. Thank bloody goodness. You want to change gender? Fine. Wait till you're an adult, not when you're a kid. So he's banned that. The other thing that he's done is he's decentralized education. So he's got rid of he's going to get rid of the DOE, and he's left it to the states. So the states can run their education system, which decentralizes, localizes, gives local people more say, but also makes it harder for it to be captured by a globalist organization like the WEF. Because then So that's really, really good. What's bad is that he's going to put in, if he hasn't already, an order about suppressing anti-Semitic speech on university campuses. Yeah. Now, why I think that's bad is because anti-Semitism is used as a way of attacking criticism of Zionism, which I think is valid politically. It's possible, people should be able to criticize any particular philosophy, including a religion, and including a political colonialist ideology like Zionism. I don't think it'll fly eventually because at the same time he strengthened the First Amendment. And there was a Supreme Court case, I can't remember right, but it's actually the Supreme Court judges ruled that it's within the First Amendment rights, that free speech rights, that people can call for violence. The Ku Klux Klan are protected under the First Amendment. And so it should be, because the point of free speech is to protect speech that we don't like, because then we can engage with it and debate and discuss.
Why is it okay for the President of the United States to call for violence, but not an average person who's got no power whatsoever?
Yeah.
If you want to stop people calling for violence, then stop calling for violence yourselves.
In the state,
this is one of the reasons why I've become so radicalized over the last few years compared to what I was, because it's the injustice of it all. Take this whole thing with Luigi, all right, Luigi Mangione, who, by the way, didn't do it. He didn't do it. He was with me at a ping pong show in Phuket, all right, and him shooting of this CEO. And look how they went, with the vigour that they went after in the manhunt.
Remind me, please, what is this? This
is the guy who shot that CEO who was the healthcare.
The insurance guy, yes.
And the manhunt, which it's just a shame you didn't go after the people who Epstein and Maxwell trafficked children to with that vigour, isn't it? The United States. I wonder why that was the case, yes. Right? But all of the senators, all of the Congress people, they all lined up one after one. You didn't have media people, personalities bringing people on, and you had politicians over here, one after one, standing up. Violence is never the answer. Really? Violence is never the answer? Why is violence never the answer when it happens on one of you or one of your friends? Because when it's your situation, when you're in a situation where you're in a tough situation and things are, your life is affected a little bit to the worse, you go to violence immediately and start bombing people, start sanctioning people, start trying to do everything, you killing people all around the world to get your way. And if any protesters protest it, then you end up violently putting them down, whacking them, getting your police to crack heads. Violence is always your solution. So why is it when the people do one act of, this isn't, sanctioning a nation and starving a nation or bombing hundreds of thousands of people or doing a genocide. No. This is just one man, one very corrupt rich man who has been profiting from the death and the suffering of an entire nation. Why is violence not the answer when that happens? But whenever the shoe is on the foot, violence is the first thing that you guys go to. And why is it that the media never ask them this question? And the media never actually say to them, why is this the case? And that's one of the reasons I've been radicalized, because like you say, the way they omit information and they don't ask questions which would just, open, not blow the lid off it all and open a discussion on things is, quite frankly, something that dictatorships could only dream of doing.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, now...
Oh, yeah, Trump. Let me talk about Trump for a second. I'm sorry, Rich. No. The reason Trump does all this with the Zionism, and the reason, he goes against what his own following want with Israel, to be honest, he's getting a lot of pushback here, is because that's who pays him.
Yep, $100 million from Miriam.
Sheldon Adelstein, who died, his wife has got the money now, and she bankrolled his
$100 million
elections, both elections, 2016, 2020, and 2024. It's billions, hundreds of billions that they've given him.
$100 million, Gordon, this time round.
How many? If you look at all, listen, it's billions, because obviously the influence that they don't get it all from one person. Their influence will get other, that's who bankrolled his campaigns, essentially. Yeah. And if you want to know how corrupt these people are, they are massive Zionists. And I reported extensively on the Julian Assange trial. He's free now. That's great. Remember, it was Trump that went after him. And Assange was being spied on in the embassy in Ecuador. It's a big, long, for anybody who doesn't understand, but it was bad. Just
Yeah.
And he was spied upon by intelligence agencies in the US who were using servers in a hotel that Sheldon Adelson owned in Las Vegas. So all of that spying was done by the very people who have bankrolled Trump's campaigns.
Yep.
So this is why he does this, because that's who owns him.
Yep. Yep.
So whenever you talk about the good things with Trump, you've always got to remember who pays him, where he gets the money from, because he's not. It would be financial suicide for him to go against these people after they have given him so much money.
Yep.
And that is horrific, especially when you hear the way he talks about Gaza and the way it's beautiful there. It's the sun shining. There's a lovely beach. It's got to be replaced. Well, not saying a damn thing about the expansion of the West Bank and the settlements in the West Bank by Israel and the clear intention of Israel to occupy Gaza and turn it into some beautiful real estate that Trump and his son-in-law Jared Kushner can sell to all his billionaire friends.
Yeah, who's a Jew?
So let's not forget that with regards to Trump and anybody who is on your screens and telling you all the good stuff that we've told you and echoing it all, and he's not talking about that, have questions about their integrity and their impartiality.
Yep.
Because that is journalistic malpractice.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, and like I said earlier, he's going to do Zionism through other means. You know, through trade, through pressuring the Egyptians and the Jordanians, through supporting.
Yeah, he wants to get rid of them, and this is what the plan was all along for Israel to go in to squash them all down towards Rafah and the southern border, and then to expel them into get rid of the problem into Jordan and Egypt and around the surrounding countries. It's their home. Yeah. They've been there for centuries. These people doing it came from bloody
Eastern Europe.
Poland, in the case of Netanyahu. His real name's Milikowski. He changed it. He's not from there. He's from there about as much as I'm from there.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
But I think the second tragedy will be Israel won't prevail.
No, they've lost already. Even if they keep going,
they won't.
Nobody's going to want to live there.
Yeah,
nobody,
and they become so unpopular with the rest of the world and the rest of the world's populations, and the blowback is going to be on Jewish people. That's the tragedy.
Well, that's what they want the blowback to be on the Jewish people. They want to blame the Jewish people for it, because then they can scapegoat the Jews and blame it on the Jews, and then they've got a defense. It's a trick. It's not the Jews doing this. It is maniacal Zionists and their hangers-on, and that is not Jews.
Yep.
It's not. And just saying you're a Zionist, that doesn't mean a Zionist actually is behind what Israel is doing. Not all Zionists are. Rastafarians are all Zionists, and none of them will be approving of this, right? So it's the nuanced thing that if ever you see headlines and divisive headlines from the mainstream media do it brilliant, ignore them, because they're just trying to divide you, and if they divide you, then they can run cover for Israel and let it do whatever it wants. Unfortunately, after what has happened, after the information becoming widespread, not just around the world, but in the Western world at home, to the people who have been propagandized into, believing that Israel is a force for good in this world, that has had a massive detriment on, one, their economy. Their economy's tanked. It's, two, their reputation around the world is lost. They have lost the tactical war. People, now Israelis are going abroad, and when people are finding out they're Israel, immediately people know, okay, this is somebody who served in the IDF. Because if you're only 18 in Israel and you come from Israel, you served in the IDF. So immediately they start to question whether these people are involved in war crimes. They're going on their Facebook pages. There's institutions that are, and charities that are being set up that are highlighting whenever these people, soldiers, go abroad, and any of them have posted anything on Facebook or they've been guilty of war crimes. They're going after them, and Israel is after going in and literally parachute them out. We saw what happened in Holland with the Maccabi Haifa rioters. Yep. You know, all of these people are serving. Most of them are going to be serving IDF soldiers, and lots of them are going to have seen action in Gaza, and maybe will have been involved in war crimes. So they're not going to be welcome around the world in any countries. That, you know, even if you are an Israeli who is absolutely against this. First of all, you can't say anything in Israel because you'll go to prison, and second of all, when you go abroad, nobody's going to believe you when you say, "Oh, I had nothing to do with it," really, because you didn't say anything. Even though that person, had they said anything, it would have been devastating for their family. Now nobody's going to believe them when they do go abroad. The spotlight's always going to be on it. As a result of that, nobody in the West is going to want to go and live there, and that is death to a colonial project that relies on importing Westerners from around the world who say that they belong to the land.
People have left. People have left Israel. The tourist industry has collapsed. Who's going to want to go on holiday there? And they're increasing boycotts.
Yeah. And even if they get what they want here, and I'm not sure they even know what they want. What they want is the Greater Israel project, but seemingly. But even if they do get what they want and they occupy a third of Syria, and you know, they get some of Jordan and they get rid of Palestinians out of Gaza and they just genocide them all, even if that happens, it's still the end of Israel because nobody's going to want to go there,
and it doesn't have the population to sustain a larger occupation. And bumping up against Turkey and Syria.
It's why Israel has always been against a two-state solution. You know, they say that. No, they don't want a two-state solution, because as soon as you've got a two-state solution, it's the end of Israel. It's the end of Israel.
Yep. And the Turks are not to be messed with. Germany, France, and UK British military combined isn't as large as the Turkish military. So
it's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's massive. And they're battle hardened, you know, through the years of war in Syria and also in Libya. So Israel's not going to want to go up against Turkey. And Erdogan, some people have said, I don't know, has got dreams of restoring the Ottoman Empire and being a major Muslim world.
He has. My father-in-law is Turkish.
Right.
He's Turkish. He's from
I think Erdogan may have said as much about restoring the Ottoman Empire. And of course, we haven't talked about this because I want to move on to the UK. We're not going to be able to go to this, right? Is the role of Iran and how Trump's belligerence towards Iran, which hopefully, because he's not for war, won't go that way. But he may not prevent Israel from doing something. And if Israel were to do something to Iran, I think the blowback would be the end for Israel.
I think it's the end for Israel. I think
it would accelerate it. It would accelerate.
Yeah. It's like it's something's got to change, and because if they carry on the way they're going, they're not just going to lose their country; they're going to be obliterated themselves.
Yep.
This is where we are now, and it's why it's so dangerous when you keep giving them weapons, because this is a nuclear-powered nation that doesn't subscribe to the nuclear, the World Nuclear Organization rules or whatever it is.
Treaty.
Nobody knows how many they've got. Nobody knows what they're capable of. It's a rogue state that literally has it written into law with the Samson Directive that if ever the state of Israel is threatened, then they go nuclear. And if they drop one nuclear bomb, Israel is wiped off the face of the planet. And that's the best case scenario, by the way. One nuclear bomb, or whatever it is, kills how many in Tehran, and Israel gets wiped off the map. And along with all the Palestinians and everything with it, of course. But that's essentially what would happen.
Yeah.
They have no defense against against conventional missiles, let alone missiles that America and America's $13 billion aircraft carriers have no defence against a hypersonic missile. You cannot defend against it. And once you've got a hypersonic missile, once you've got these missiles that can have these massive warheads, massive payloads, can penetrate 400 meters in the ground, as we found out in Ukraine, your project is over and you're all dead.
Yep.
All of you.
No,
and it might end up with all the people on the planet dead and nuclear war. Yep. But the best case scenario in that is just, so it's like, to me, it's like Israel is threatening with the Samson Directive, if we don't get what we want, we're going to kill everyone.
Yep.
And so essentially what that is it's a 6-year-old kid who is saying, if you don't let me win, I'm taking my ball home and then I'm going to blow up the football pitch.
Yeah.
And when a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old kid does that, and your child comes to you and says, if I don't get what I want, I'm going to burn down the house, what do? Do you give it what they want because you're scared that they're going to burn down the house? Or do you smack its arse and send it to bed without its supper? And that's what Israel needs. And nobody has been brave enough to do it. Well, guess what? We're in that sort of territory now. This is what they're threatening: nuclear war and the annihilation of the planet if they don't get what they want.
Absolutely.
And they will once they get what they want, they will never stop. Because it's like somebody who blackmails you. They're never going to stop blackmailing you if they've blackmailed you once, ever.
Okay,
and this is essentially.
Hold on, stop. Sorry. You're unconscious of the time, right?
Sorry, mate.
And I'm going to say two things, and then we're going to move on to the UK in the remaining time. Okay. So the other thing that Trump has done that is not good, and I don't know how it's going to play out, and we're not going to have the time to go into it in depth, is this with Larry Ellison and mRNA injections and using AI to come up against vaccines, against injections against cancer. It's like, what is that going?
His own supporter, like, what?
Yeah.
We've been telling you about mRNA. We've been screaming about it for 4 years. You've been talking about it. RFK has been screaming about mRNA. And now you're going to do what with RNA? That's it. If that's a 4D chess move, I can't see it.
Yeah. Well, like I said at the beginning, not everything that even Corbyn and Galloway do that you and I agree with. Then the other thing, we were talking about the war, right? One of the things that people can do, and I recommend it, especially if you're in the UK, go to bit.ly/makewarhistory. It is a criminal offence to pay any money to government, local or central, directly or indirectly, if any of those proceeds are going to be used to support what's happening in Israel, to carry on the bombing of Yemen, and to support the Ukraine and Russia war in any way, to fund it, facilitate it. It is a criminal offence, and that's laid out in the International Criminal Court Act 2001 and the Terrorism Act 2000. And what you can do from the bit.ly/makewarhistory is you download a very simple to complete trust form. It's easy to complete. It's completely free, which says to the receiving agency, you can have these funds provided you can ensure full compliance with these statutes, because it's a criminal offence otherwise for you and for me. So I invite people to go and do that. I've done that successfully with HMRC, and as far as Probity Code no one who's used this process with HMRC has been threatened with court action, because there's just no way around it. So I just want to say that. The United Kingdom. Let's talk about the United Kingdom. Let's start with, just like we did with Trump, all the good things that Starmer has done.
This is going to be a really short conversation, isn't it?
Okay. Now, what has he done that's not great? Where do we begin?
Did you say time was an issue?
Oh my God. He is the worst. I think he may even trump Tony Blair in his venality.
Yeah, at least Tony Blair had charisma. At least Tony Blair had something about him.
And
you
did a few things that were good, I suppose.
Yeah.
So let's start. So one is the assisted.